The girl never imagined that when the man bought her for a single gold coin, the first thing he'd do was tell her to take off her clothes. As a slave, she had no right to refuse. Trembling, she stripped, only for the man to wave his hand, casting a soft white glow over her. It was healing magic, so powerful even the slave trader had never seen anything like it. Her deadly wounds vanished in an instant. Her name was Lily, an elven girl struck through the chest by an arrow during her escape. The man who saved her was once the most overlooked member of an adventuring party, the healer. Not long ago, he was kicked out by his teammates. His instant healing was too overpowered, so effective that his team never even felt pain in battle. They started treating adventuring like a game, losing all sense of danger. The captain tossed him a coin as severance and laughed. "Your magic makes fighting meaningless. You're better off begging in the streets." He silently accepted the coin and left amid their mockery, only to find Lily outside being chased by slave traders. An arrow had pierced her chest, but she still clung to her attacker's arm, fire blazing in her eyes. "She's dying. 1 gold coin and she's yours," the slaver spat. The man looked at her bloodied wings and, perhaps reminded of his own rejection, handed over his only coin. As the healing light enveloped her, Lily's eyes widened in shock. It was stronger than anything she'd seen, even from royal high priests. "My name is Iman," he said quietly. He bought her new clothes and took her into a tavern, spending the last of his money. "I need a job," Iman muttered, his eyes drifting to a man walking in, clutching a burnt wound on his arm. The man was a gang member burned by a magic bullet. Too afraid to visit a real clinic, Iman waved his hand, and the massive wound disappeared instantly. "God's hand," the man whispered, dumping his entire life savings on the table. That's when Iman got the idea. Why not open a black clinic in the slums? He and Lily searched until they found a ruined neighborhood. One mansion stood out, luxurious but said to be haunted. "Leave, mortal, this is my domain." A black-robed woman appeared, surrounded by floating bones. She was Camilla, queen of the dead, the pinnacle of undead monsters. But Iman didn't flinch. "I've purified hundreds of undead deep in the labyrinth. My healing magic is their natural enemy." Camilla scoffed and summoned her skeletal army, but one advanced healing spell from Inan cleansed them all in a flash. To undead, healing was lethal. Camilla huffed. "Fine, the first floor is yours, but the second floor is off limits." And so, Iman's clinic was born. Lily put on a nurse outfit, but with no patience. She was disappointed, until the gang member returned, this time with his sister Sophia. She'd been shot with a poison-based magic gun and her arm was turning black. "I'll need 1,000,000 gold coins to amputate it," Iman said. "You trying to extort me? I'm Winfang Sophia of the slums," she shouted. But when her arm was healed in seconds, she dropped the attitude. "Miracle doctor, from now on all my people will come to you." Word of Iman's clinic spread fast, so did trouble. One day he saw a noble beating a beast-eared girl writhing in pain. She delayed her duties and was being punished. Soon after, the noble stumbled into the clinic bleeding, claiming the girl had attacked him. Iman examined the beast girl and saw black energy swirling around her. Her abdomen glowed ominously, a sign of ghost possession. "Kill her, I'll pay handsomely," the noble snarled. Instead, Iman brushed past him. The girl threw stones in fear, but he calmly dodged them and placed his hand on her stomach. "She's not attacking, she's crying for help." With a flash of white light, the ghost was purged and a kidney stone was removed in the same instant. The noble gawked and offered a bag of coins, but Iman scoffed. "You call this beggar's change?" In the end, the noble handed over a slave contract to cover the difference. The girl he'd just beaten became Inan's new slave. "Take off your clothes," Iman said. The beast girl trembled, misunderstanding his intent, but then warmth bloomed in her belly as the magic gently removed the stone. She stood speechless. "You're healed," he said, tearing up the contract. "Now help me gather herbs, we're even." Tears in her eyes, the beast girl swore to repay him. Iman knew that in a world divided by class, sometimes redemption mattered more than money. Peace didn't last long. The werewolf gang boss Lenka burst through the clinic's doors. He'd noticed Sophia's crew recovering quickly from wounds and figured Iman was the cause. Just as he moved to attack, Camilla appeared from the second floor, Bone's spear pointed at his chest. "You dare threaten someone from my house?" Only then did Lenka realize Iman had the Queen of the Dead on his side. He quickly bowed. "My deepest apologies, ma'am, I didn't recognize greatness." Next came Raivi, the boar-headed leader of a mining gang. She'd accidentally swallowed an unstable magic stone, her belly now glowing faintly. "If we don't operate soon, I'll blow up." Unfazed, Iman picked up a scalpel. Before a stunned crowd, he opened her abdomen, removed the stone by hand, then crushed it bare-handed. The explosion's energy dispersed harmlessly in his palm. "This'll power the clinic for a month," he shrugged. Ravi dropped to her knees. "You're our tribe's savior." But trouble kept knocking. The three dominant forces in the slums, Sophia, Lenka, and Rayevi, all wanted Iman to join their turf war. On the day of reckoning, the three leaders battled to claim him. Their soldiers clashed in the streets, yet no one died. From his second-to-floor window, Iman quietly cast healing spells on everyone below. Let them fight, he told Lily, who stared in disbelief. They'll learn who really holds power. As the sun set, the three exhausted bosses looked around and realized none of their people had fallen. All eyes turned to the clinic, where Ayman stood in the window and waved. In that moment they understood Ayman didn't need to pick a side. He was the side. From that day on, Sophia's lizardmen, Lenka's werewolves, and Ryavi's boarfolk all guarded the clinic. Ayman's black clinic became a legend in the kingdom's underworld, a sanctuary built by a so-called useless healer who used his overpowered gift to bring salvation to the darkest corners of the world. The slum district had been caught in chaos for days. The lizardmen, beastmen, tribes, and shadow thieves clashed endlessly. What should have ended in bloodshed dragged on due to a strange phenomenon. No matter how badly someone was injured, they would instantly recover. It wasn't until the three exhausted faction leaders collapsed amid the rubble that they realized the prolonged battle wasn't due to a balance of power. It was because someone had been secretly intervening. That commoner named Janos. Every time one of our people gets hurt, he just shows up like a ghost, waves his hand, and the wound's gone. The lizardman chief growled in disbelief. Only then did they connect the dots. The soft-spoken man who quietly treated patients at the clinic had been using healing magic to turn deadly conflict into a war of attrition. At that moment, Janos stood between the three factions, his plain clothes stained with herbal paste, holding no weapon, just calmly offering an alternative. Enough blood has been spilled in the slums. Your hatred shouldn't fall on children and the elderly. Miraculously, the battle-hardened leaders lowered their weapons. While smoke from cooking fires rose gently over the slums for the first time in days, the commander of the Royal Guard paced nervously at headquarters. Peace, that's the real threat, he snarled, slamming a fist onto his desk. The parchment map of the kingdom's class structure trembled. Royalty above nobles, nobles above citizens, citizens above commoners, and commoners oppressing the outcasts. That's the foundation of our prosperity. If the commoners ever unite, this whole pyramid collapses. Vice Commander Krishna received her orders while polishing her magical rifle. Steel Breaker, known as the Iron Maiden, she wore an emotionless expression in cold, gleaming armor. Her mission: infiltrate the slums and investigate the mysterious arbiter who had brought about this dangerous peace. If he truly united the commoners, eliminate him at any cost, the commander had said. Krishna's first night in the slums was a failure. She grabbed a young lizard man by the collar. Who told you to stop fighting? Who is the arbiter? The youth spit blood and gave her a stubborn smile. Wanna know? Step over my corpse first. Janos had already earned the slum's trust. They'd die before betraying the one who brought them peace. As Krishna prepared to strike, a familiar figure flashed past. Sophia, the elven girl she'd once wounded. Krishna instinctively stepped back and gave chase, only to get hopelessly lost in the maze-like alleys. When she came to her senses, she found herself standing before a modest house marked Janos Clinic. Pushing open the door, the scent of herbs greeted her. A silver-haired girl crouched by the fireplace, stirring a pot. Are you lost, big sister? She asked with innocent eyes. Krishna meant to ask for directions, but Francie at the sight of the modest furnishings, especially the bare wooden bed in the center of the room. Janos emerged from the back, nearly dropping his medicine pot when he saw her. You, what are you doing here? One day, Krishna revealed why she despised commoners. My mother used to bring food to the slums every day. She absently touched the simple copper ring around her neck. She wore her wedding ring that day and came back as a corpse. They said a commoner killed her for it. From that moment, Krishna equated commoner with evil. She joined the Royal Guard, determined to become the perfect hero who would purge threats to the kingdom. Janos said nothing, his fingers tracing the slum map pinned on the clinic wall. He knew the truth wasn't that simple. These people wouldn't kill someone who helped them just for a ring. Just then, Sophia returned with critical intel. The noble behind the child trafficking ring is Lord Calendar. He pretends to fund orphanages, but behind the scenes, lies. Krishna jumped to her feet, armor clanking. Lord Calendar is a model noble. You can't just slander him. Her trust came from a lifetime of class indoctrination, reinforced by Calendar's flawless public image. Janos sighed. Fine, I'll say it plainly. I'm the arbiter you've been searching for. I don't want to topple the kingdom. I just want these people to live like humans. Krishna staggered back, nearly dropping Steel Breaker. She stared at Janos, his calm eyes, and suddenly recalled the way he treated the wounded. There was no pretense, only compassion. With her beliefs shaken, she resolved to investigate Calendar herself. Under the guise of a patrol, she entered his mansion. Her instincts kicked in when she noticed an abnormal guard presence near the back gate. From a basement vent, she heard the muffled cries of children. She pried open the hidden hatch beneath the well in Francie. A dozen children chained to the damp stone walls, their faces pale with fear. Don't worry, I'm from the Royal Guard, she began, only to be shot in the back. Calendar stepped from the shadows, when in hand, his face twisted in malice. Perfect, saves me the trouble of silencing you later. Why, she gasped, clutching her bleeding shoulder. Money, he sneered. Commoner kids make great cargo. As for your mother, she caught me moving goods that day. That ring was part of the loot. The truth shattered her world. She raised Steel Breaker, but collapsed from blood loss. Just then, Janos and Sophia burst through the door. Calendar fired at Janos, but the bullets disintegrated on contact. How was that possible? He stammered. Janos walked forward as the noble tripped over his own robe. Krishna used her last ounce of strength to aim. You're not worthy of the title noble. Wait, don't kill him. Janos held her hand down. Let the kingdom judge his crimes. He turned to Krishna, who was pale and clutching her arm, eyes filled with despair. Janos, give this evidence to the commander. It's just a scratch, he said with a sigh. Golden light glowed at his fingertips. He gently pressed it to her wound, and the torn flesh healed in seconds. Even the bullet hole in her armor sealed shut. Krishna stared in disbelief at her unblemished arm, then at Janos' calm smile. She remembered her commander's words, only legendary archmages can heal instantly. She started, but Janos interrupted with a grin. Go help the kids, and hey, he suddenly smirked. You stayed here 3 nights. Room and healing fees come to 50 gold. Pay up. Krishna frowned. Then, for the first time since her mother died, she let out a faint trembling laugh. It was awkward, but warm, like winter's end under a well-lit sky. When the lizard men arrived with a rescue team, they saw Krishna clumsily unlocking chains. Her steel gloves clinked against the metal, but her face had never looked softer. Keelander's arrest shook the entire kingdom. The noble class's mask cracked. Krishna, hailed for exposing the truth, voluntarily requested a transfer to serve as the peacekeeper of the slums. She now stood outside Janos' clinic, watching kids of all races laugh and play under the sun. For the first time her armored heart felt at peace. Hey, Janos. She knocked and handed him a pouch of coins. For the room. Janos raised an eyebrow. What, the slums don't scare you anymore? She glanced at Lily carrying a medicine bowl, Sophia sorting herbs in the sunlight, the clinic glowing with life. My mother used to say, Krishna murmured, peace doesn't come from hierarchy, it's earned, by people like you. The wind swept through the slum rooftops, carrying the scent of herbs and fresh bread. Janos watched her leave, the sunlight dancing on her armor, no longer cold. He knew the kingdom's rigid structure wouldn't collapse overnight, but now, a steel lady stood on the side of peace. And as for Janos, the misunderstood arbiter, he would continue to heal wounds and hearts. The man stood in the muddy alley of the slums, his fingers trembling as they brushed over the faded captain's badge at his waist. Once the linchpin of the hero's adventuring party, he now wore an arrogance born of desperation, convinced that if he called out, the expelled healer would come running with healing scrolls in hand. He found the slum lizard folk boss Sophia, who was wrapping herself in a medicine-stained cloak as she stormed toward the clinic. At his mention, she burst into harsh laughter. Ha, so you're that idiot captain. Those words pierced him like poisoned daggers. He tamped down his fury. This was slum territory, a brutal arena ruled by the lizard folk berserkers, the cat ear information traders, and Sophia's westerners, but the nickname, Morn Captain, had spread like wildfire. On sighting the healer, he ordered, come back with me, only to have his command flatly refused. Consumed by rage, the captain plotted a clandestine attack that very night, but ran into Krishna, lost in the labyrinthine streets. Worse yet, at the sight of the very garbage healer he scorned stood the 3 cross-species leaders. Krishna, the youngest ever vice-commander of the guard, rubbed the healer's shoulder friendly for directions. Panic seized the captain. He bolted to his hideout, unaware that the 3 bosses had begun investigating the eerie runic necklace around his neck. The underguild, the guide, the lizard folk chief, exhaled a wreath of smoke, his scales glinting in firelight. Only those lunatics would take those no-pay jobs. Legend told of a guide wielding ancient demonic magic and forging living golems from Morsha, magical stones. In anger, the captain ripped the necklace off and hurled it onto the table. He didn't see the ghostly green pulse that escaped its surface. It was Longmai Huhua, the magic stone awakening. A thunderous crash tore through the night. Camilla perched atop the clock tower, fronzy as she saw it, a monstrous golem 100 feet tall, trampling rubble toward the clinic. More. Sure glowed eerily red in its chest and along its spine. Twisted strands of human bone and metal quivered in the moonlight. Ancient artificial life, the cat ear elder murmured, leafing through forbidden texts that spoke of this defiled creation. Each massive blow cracked the earth. Civilians flew like rag dolls. The 3 factions' warriors rushed in, but the golem's regenerative powers stunned them. Severed limbs reformed in the red glow, ouncing corrosive icture. Get the wounded to the plaza, the healer shouted. He ripped open his shirt to reveal a glowing healing array etched on his chest. A burst of white light exploded from his palms, and every injured person he touched gasped as the pain vanished. The wounds healed instantly. Mass healing, not enough, he muttered, seeing people still crying out. Then he stunned everyone, his left hand pressed on a dying man's chest, channeling life itself, while his right condensed dark destructive magic, hurling a strike at the golem's joints. Healing and havoc intertwined in his hands. Warriors healed and returned to battle while cracks appeared on the golem's joints. On a rooftop, the guide watched with a cold smile as the captain's body was consumed by the Morsha, the lifeless vessel, mindless and violent. uprooted the final barricade. Then Sophia noticed a little girl cowering at the golem's massive feet. The golem paused. Its armored hand lowered to shield her. The healer's breath caught in his throat. The core, a living human, he's the core. Under the moonlight, the healer's blade carved 32 crisp slashes each, one severing a Martia butt, simultaneously infusing it with healing magic. The guide staggered. Never before had he seen destructive healing like this. Far surpassing even legendary healers. When the final Morshi shattered, the captain's body tumbled out, half of his face twisted into metal, his one remaining eye wide with terror. "Why save me?" he rasped, coughing up blood as the healer began stitching bone and muscle with surgical precision. The healer wiped his blade and spoke with quiet authority. "1. I need to find the guide. 2. You gave me the coin to buy Lily with your severance pay, but most importantly, I am a healer." Those words tormented the captain. For nights, he couldn't sleep. From hidden shadows, he watched Sophia and the others train beside the healer, realizing the power he'd once scorned had saved their lives more times than he cared to count. One night, he crept into the bathhouse to apologize, only to walk in on Lily passing a towel to the healer while Sophia barged in with a wooden bucket, and Krishna, feigning being lost, was soaking in the water too. The sight, these girls all vying for his attention, hit him full force. The life he thought he'd lost was not just any life, but a world rich with connection. A sudden explosion rocked the inn's basement. Healing potions burned the healer's colleague's arm black beyond healing, but the healer simply tossed down a pouch of magic dust. The charred flesh regenerated in real time. The blue-haired healer fell to the floor in shock. She ran back to the Royal Healing Academy and told senior healer Beck. He hurried out to verify, only to have the healer diagnose her. "You have a mutated lung ailment with 3 hidden lesions, wouldn't show in basic potion tests." Beck was stunned, and offered him a job. "Students are disappearing. They suspect Vice Principal Geraldrin is recruiting talent for his faction. Would you go undercover?" On his first day at the academy, curly-haired Crescent eyed him. A student under Geraldrin, Crescent bragged incessantly about fighting 30 ghosts. During a demo on healing arrays, he conspired to humiliate the healer, but the healer's combination of light elf and demonkin designs stunned the professor. Geraldrin himself recognized the pattern. It matched 300-year-old fragments he'd seen. Then came the test of the undead. Against the zombie lord, Crescent stole the healer's moment, claiming credit when it failed. But the healer stepped up. One hand cast advanced healing on injured students. The other hand unleashed destructive magic that exploded the zombie lord's core. Crescent collapsed as the professor watched the healer march toward Geraldrin's door. Real power eclipsed all hierarchy. Geraldrin's office smelled faintly of dragon's amber. The vice principal tapped the desk, meeting the healer's eyes. "Do you believe poor people deserve as much care as nobles?" The healer stood steady. He remembered the faces of slum dwellers left to die for lack of money. Life has no price, but people's hearts do. He sketched a new magic array, fused of light and shadow. Geraldrin's shiver told him this was the same array in the guide's ancient notes. "Where did you learn that?" Geraldrin demanded, but the healer replied, "Through self-study." Geraldrin narrowed his eyes. This wild card needed watching. Meanwhile, Beck delved into secret archives and found a clue. The missing students had gotten hold of Geraldrin's forbidden tome from the Underguild. One midnight, our healer infiltrated Geraldrin's private study and found half a Morshi, matching the one the captain wore. When he probed it with healing magic, the Morshas screamed, and academy alarms broke loose. Chaos. Krishna burst in with royal guard. She held the arrest warrant. The guide was revealed as none other than Geraldrin's former partner. The mastermind behind the slum golem. The missing students were kidnapped for experiments, repurposed as energy cores. The climax took place in the academy's magic tower as it began to collapse. Geraldrin activated the tower's golem core while students panicked. The healer deployed healing magic to stabilize the structure and coordinated evacuation. Krishna swung her holy sword to cleave through the golem's chest. But what emerged went Morshi. They were the souls of the missing students, transformed into crystallized spirit forms. A healer's duty is to save all life, not sort it. The healer's voice echoed through collapsing stone. He pressed his hands on the largest spirit crystal, channeling healing light. The fading souls reformed into student bodies. Geraldrin fell, broken, before the miracle. When the dust settled, the healer declined Beck's offer of senior healer position and returned to the slums with Lily. As they walked through the battered streets, Sophia helped rebuild homes, the lizard folk boss distributed food, and the cat ears erected a new clinic. The former captain, now humbled, fumbled with a bandage for a little girl. He blushed when the healer arrived and pressed hot soup into his hands. At the hot spring's edge, Lily gathered courage and entered the men's bath only to discover Sophia and Krishna already there, each vying for his attention. Cherry blossoms drifted outside the window as he leaned back and smiled. He understood. Healing wasn't just about flesh and bones, it was the balm for broken hearts. Titles meant nothing. The captain's faded badge. By dawn, a stray cat had claimed it. ChatGPT sure. Morning sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the Royal Healing Institute, casting colorful patterns on the marble floor. Deputy Director Goldrin led the weekly inspection, his gold-embroidered white robes flowing behind him, trailed by a line of lab members. At the back of the group was Cresson, his fingernails digging into his palm as he watched the assistants jostle to carry Goldran's medicine case. Today's first patient, a countess's Persian cat with a sprained ankle. Janus hid behind a column, quietly observing. When Goldran began chanting a spell, he clearly saw 3 assistants' chests glow green. 3 beams of light snaked into Goldran's palm. Transfer healing, whispered Cresson, suddenly appearing beside him with a smug look. It pulls vitality from healthy people and gives it to the injured. The more serious the injury, the more it drains. Those assistants will be living on supplements all week. Janus frowned. What happens if it's used long-term? Cresson shrugged. Goldran says it's a necessary sacrifice. He needs noble backing to secure his spot as director. The words brought back Beck's warning. Genos still remembered the clink of the silver coin the old healer dropped and his hesitant tone. Alfred, the missing student, Goldran's favorite, disappeared right after one of his dinner parties. Janus' thoughts were cut short as Umian, a red-haired alchemist, came running. Cresson's dog was hit by a carriage. If Goldran sees those wounds, he'll throw him out of the faction. Crystal chandeliers sparkled across the Morsira estate, almost blinding. Miss Charlotte had locked herself on the balcony, her golden curls hiding the dark red lump on her cheek like a ripe berry on porcelain. "I won't let you cut me," she screamed, hurling a vase at Goldran. "You butchers only know how to slice." Janus approached, gently stroking the railing where a wounded canary rested. "Do you know why this bird can't fly?" he asked softly. "Its wing healed incorrectly after a fracture, just like the tumor on your cheek. If we do nothing, it'll wrap around your nerves like a vine. You won't even be able to smile." Charlotte looked up, startled by the calm certainty in his eyes. When he healed the bird with golden magic, she gasped. You can make me whole again too." In the operating room, Goldran insisted Cresson take the lead. "Watch carefully," he said coldly, grabbing Cresson's wrist and guiding the scalpel. As the blade touched Charlotte's skin, she screamed and Goldran deliberately pushed down, slicing into a nerve. "Damn, the nerve's severed," he shouted, backing away. "Call Earl Feniel." Janus's eyes turned cold. Amid the chaos, he stepped forward and released a burst of dazzling magic. Thread-like spells mended the torn nerve and pulled out the tumor at its root. Not a drop of blood was left behind. Charlotte touched her smooth cheek, sobbing. Goldran, pale as the surgical sheet, stood frozen. The sparkling champagne tower reflected the chandelier's glow. Janus moved through the crowd with a wine glass in hand. Cresson followed like a shadow, no longer boasting of Goldran's influence, but whispering. "I overheard Bonds say that explosion 13 years ago. Goldran used transfer healing to save Earl Feniel and let the civilians die." Bonds was already drunk on the terrace. The red-skinned man squinted at Genos, then suddenly focused. "You look just like the one who healed Feniel back then." By the third glass of whiskey, Bonds spilled everything. Goldran saw Feniel crushed under rubble and pulled life from 3 dying civilians to save him. "I saw him toss their bodies into the river." Jaius crushed his glass. Blood dripped from his palm. He remembered Alfred's notebook. Forbidden use of transfer healing. Onevan energy exchange causes soul echoes. Just then, a commotion erupted downstairs. Sophia's younger brother Sander was carried in with half an arrow sticking from his chest. A demi-human. Here, Goldran blocked the stairs when raised at Genos. "If you heal him, you'll never work at the Royal Academy again." Cresson suddenly stepped forward, shielding Genos. "Director Goldran, a healer's duty is to save lives, not to choose by race." Gasps filled the hall. Janus leapt from the balcony with Sander in his arms, healing light streaking through the night like a shooting star. When Genos returned with the healed Sander, the banquet was in chaos. Bonds was tied to a column, gagged. Goldran had his wand pointed at Earl Feniel. "It was you. You forced me to use transfer healing. Their deaths are your fault too." Beck burst in with the knights, holding an old report. "Alfred, the boy on the survivor list from 13 years ago, he saw Goldran kill civilians to save a noble. He changed his name and entered the academy to take revenge." As he finished, a hidden door creaked open. Alfred stepped out, holding a wand glowing green. "My father was one of the civilians Goldran drained." His voice trembled. "I snuck into his lab. He's still experimenting with transfer healing on human subjects." Janus realized the missing students had been used as test subjects for Goldran's breakthrough into special-grade healing. The final battle took place beneath the healing hall's domed ceiling. Goldran siphoned vitality from every assistant, transforming into a towering green golem. Alfred fought with the soul echoes he'd gathered. Janus stood between them, casting both healing and destruction spells, repairing the drained assistants while targeting the golem's energy nodes. When the golem collapsed, Goldran looked down at his rapidly aging hands and finally crumbled. After the incident, the Royal Healing Institute underwent a massive restructuring. Earl Feniel was stripped of his title for covering up the crimes. Bonds, as a key witness, was pardoned. Alfred left to find other survivors from the explosion. Cresson resigned, opening a small clinic in the slums to treat those who couldn't afford medicine. Janus declined Beck's offer to stay. With Lily at his side, he returned to the slums. Before he left, Charlotte brought him a box of homemade treats. The scar on her cheek had been carefully concealed, but her eyes shone with determination. Janus, if you're willing, I want to learn true healing from you. Steam rose from the hot springs as dusk settled in. Lily grumbled about having to mend Janus' cloak again, while Sophia burst in with a fish. Grilled fish tonight. Crescent says he's bringing fresh herbs. Christina followed with a stack of documents, muttering just passing by, while stealing glances at the seat beside Janus. The slums were rebuilding. The lizardman chief directed workers while the cat-eared folk erected a new apothecary. Janus leaned by the spring, gazing at the stars, remembering Beck's final words. Healing isn't about manipulating life, it's about protecting every soul equally. His reflection shimmered on the water. The scar once left by a party that abandoned him now glowed silver under the moon. Not a mark of shame, but the badge of a true healer. By the time Janus reached Sander, the arrow wound in the young lizardkin's chest had already turned into soft pink skin. The next day, while reporting to Beck, details of Alfred's childhood explosion incident matched Janus' suspicions perfectly, thickening the air with tension. Tomorrow night is Goldrand's victory banquet, Beck murmured, fingers tracing the edge of a silver medicine box. Alfred may strike then. Janus needed another day to finalize his withdrawal from the Institute. That evening during Janus' farewell party, Crescent was stunned to learn the commoner healer he used to mock had actually been secretly investigating the disappearances under Beck's orders. Meanwhile, Yumin rummaged through Beck's desk and found an old faded photo. Back at the banquet, the crystal chandelier shimmered over Goldrand's triumphant face. Just as he raised his glass for a toast, every guest suddenly collapsed in unison. Red wine spilled from their mouths, staining white tablecloths with crimson blotches. Struggling to lift his head, Goldrand saw Beck step out of the shadows, twirling a vial of poison in his hand. I remember it clearly. 13 years ago you stole life from civilians to save Earl Feniel, he said coldly, pressing the bottle to Goldrand's lips. He added, this poison kills in 10 minutes, but I gave you the slowest acting dose. You've got time to find some expendable lives to trade for your own. Moans filled the banquet hall. Goldrand glanced at the collapsed nobles and faction elites around him, then suddenly burst into manic laughter. Of course life has value tiers, like gold, silver and copper coins. He tore off his tie and began chanting. 3 of his assistants lit up with green glows across their chests. Will you save me? Goldrand Fronsi caught off guard, while Janus burst through the crowd with Crescent and Umian. They had just uncovered the truth. The old photo showed not only Alfred, but Beck's late fiancée Lucia, lying beneath rubble after the explosion. 13 years ago, Lucia could have survived, Beck whispered, blood trailing from his lips, but Goldrand drained her and 2 others to save Feniel. I didn't know back then that the thug who used the photo to blackmail him was Bonds. He pointed a trembling finger at Goldrand. When I found out he was becoming director, I swore to reveal his true face. Just as Goldrand prepared to drain more life, Danos grabbed his wrist. You were never poisoned. He pried open Beck's eyes. Beck drank the real poison, and only someone close to him could have switched it. A cold laugh echoed from the corner. The man calling himself Alfred slowly removed his wig, revealing golden hair underneath. You're sharper than Beck ever was, Danos, he sneered, spinning the vial in his fingers. The real Alfred died 13 years ago when Goldrand drained his life. I'm Lucia's brother. I was hiding in the rubble, I saw everything. His name was Leon. He had faked his identity to get close to Beck, using the man's revenge as a smokescreen for his own. Beck thought he was playing chess, but he was just a pawn. Leon tossed a folder on the table. I switched his paralyzing powder and poisoned his wine. Now that Goldrand's crimes are exposed and Beck's framed as the poisoner, I'll carry on my sister's legacy by wiping out all the scum. Amid the chaos, Danos lifted Beck and ran for the emergency room. Leon tried to stop him, but Crescent held him back. If your sister could see you now, she'd never want you to become a killer. Meanwhile, Yumian forced Goldrand's mouth open and poured in the antidote. Janus had prepared it ahead of time, a formula tailored to counter Leon's toxin. On the operating table, Danos' healing magic shimmered like stars. As he worked to restore Beck's ravaged organs, he looked at Leon. Lucia once saved a street orphan. That boy grew up to become a slum healer. He always said real healing means giving every life the choice to live. Leon Franci. In his mind he heard Lucia's voice again. Life isn't something to be priced, just like sunlight shouldn't be hidden. When Beck finally woke up, Leon had already disappeared. Crescent handed him a warm glass of water. Janus said, maybe you should visit the slums, people there need a healer like you. Outside, the emblem of the Royal Healing Institute was being taken down, while a new white flag bearing the healer's symbol rose over a slum clinic. Beck, Crescent, and Yumian's new home. Janus, with Christina's help, visited Beck one last time. The old healer was tending to a street kid's wounds. Leon was right, he admitted, I let hatred blind me. He handed Janus a small wooden box. This is intel from your old master. He was part of the rescue effort 13 years ago, just in a very different way. On his final day at the institute, Crescent and Umian waited at the gate. I'm going with Beck to the slums, Crescent said, scratching his head. They need me more there. Uman offered a pouch of herbs. My newest mix, it's great for sprains. Janus smiled, but his eyes were drawn to a rooftop in the distance, where Leon Saturday waving goodbye. Sunlight glinted off the photo of Lucia in his hand, untouched by hatred. Steam rose once more from the hot spring. Lily was grumbling about Janus dirtying his cloak again, when Sophia burst in holding 2 large fish. Fish for dinner, Crescent's bringing that herb wine he made. Chrysina followed behind, pretending to just be passing by but quietly took the seat next to Janus. From afar,